and walk away and walk down that path. But, yeah, nice.
Hey guys, we're getting ready to go live with community meeting. We can hear you back there. Please. They took everything though.
Okay, and mics are going live. We have audios live now for the virtual meeting.
Ready? Good evening. My name is
I'm not seeing your main mic. I'm going to review for a minute. Your iPad is not coming up. Must have shut itself off. There we go. There's going to be a delay from the room. Okay.
good.
And go ahead.
Good evening and welcome to the community meeting for the Creek Fire. My name is Kristen Allison. I'm one of the information officers for California Incident Management Team 1. Welcome and thank you for joining this evening. Tonight we're going to be going through all of our subject matter experts to give you some information on the Creek Fire. This will take as long as you guys have questions. We ask that you use the chat box either in the YouTube or also in the Facebook Live, and we'll get those questions answered while we're here. I'm going to go a little bit over the agenda. We're going to have an operational briefing by Chad Cook. We're going to have weather by our incident meteorologist, John Pendergrass. We'll have somebody speak to fire behavior and air resources, as well as information from our Madera County Sheriff's Corporal, Chris Williams, someone from Southern California Edison, some information from the County of Fresno, and closing comments from our agency administrator and our IC. To get started, we're going to have our Deputy IC talk a little bit about the use of our virtual community meetings in COVID. Ken Kepner.
Good evening. My name is Ken Kepner. I'm the Deputy Incident Commander on California Incident Management Team 1, and I'm also the Deputy Incident Commander here on the Creek Fire. Welcome to our community meeting. The purpose of this meeting is for us to give you updates on the incident and give you a chance to ask questions of the fire managers that are assigned. As you may have noticed, this format's a little bit different than our typical community meetings where we're face-to-face. And that's for your safety and our firefighters' safety. With COVID, we have firefighters that have come to this incident from throughout the United States, and it's just too much of a hazard for them to allow community members to interact with them while they're on the incident, or for them to interact with you and have the potential of spreading COVID to the communities. The main reason we're here tonight is for you and the community members, so we please ask questions as the night goes on and interact with the people, even though it is harder to do with the virtual format. That's all I have. Thank you, and have an excellent meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ken. Our next speaker will be our Operations Section Chief, Chad Cook.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chad Cook, one of the Operations Section Chiefs for California Incident Management Team 1. I'm going to give you a quick overview on the fire, but prior to doing that, I just want to talk about our overall strategy on the fire, what our objectives are when we look at this. So we have two things going on. We still have active fire burning up in the wilderness portions, which I'll get into a little bit about specifically. And the second thing we have going on is suppression repair. Oftentimes people ask us questions about what is suppression repair and what does that entail? Well, during the firefight, during the last several weeks, as this fire burned very, very aggressively, tactics and strategy were used where they used mechanized equipment, they used hand crews, and damage occurred on the landscape. When we look at all that damage that occurred by the fire, we have to come in and repair it afterwards. Oftentimes, it means that we might have cut roads using heavy equipment. We might have had a lot of damage from the fire to snags, which are hazard trees to us. And we have to deal with all these and mitigate all these hazards. So not only can we reopen it for the community, but we can also repair the landscape that's out there, as I mentioned. So as we look around the fire and we talk about that, I'll start up on the top end of Division Juliet. As you take a look at this fire, you see that we represent black line as controlled fire edge. It doesn't mean there's not heat near there, but we feel that it's so much been contained, or that we've taken care of it where there isn't so much of a threat of escape. We feel we can walk away from it. As you look up on the top end of the fire, we don't have a lot of that. You don't see a lot of black line around this other than a small section here. And I'm going to talk about why. The fuel continuity, the fuel changes as this fire moves up into here. And as it moves up into here, it moves more into a rock structure and into very, very sparse fuels where we can allow it to consume that. Now, it doesn't mean we're just openly letting it burn. Our strategy in all of this wilderness area is to fully suppress the fire, but we're fully suppressing the fire with the intent of using natural barriers to bring that under control. This is very, very tough access for our firefighters and for to get crews in and out of the area. We do have people that are out here and we're monitoring this daily, but I don't want you to give you the false idea that we're just letting it burn off and we're not worried about it. We are worried about it and we are monitoring it, but we're also taking advantage of a lot of the features that are on the landscape for us to bring suppression that is safe and effective for the people that are out there. So as you take a look at this area up here, there's not a lot of heat in this. Yes, it's uncontrolled because it hasn't been validated across other than through air, but we are walking people today. We walked people out here. We found some small heat signature. We're using technology too. Our infrared technology and our ability to see heat out here really helps us pinpoint resources and puts them into the spots where we know that we might have a weak spot in our line, and we focus on that and we basically try to secure it or make sure that it can't escape. This looks really good, and there's been no spread for several weeks out here as it moves into the rocks, but you see heat because it continues to consume some of our heavy dead and down fuels that are on the forest floor. As you move down around this side of the fire, I mentioned suppression repair. This was known as the north side of the fire, or when we separated the fire out in two geographical areas, this was the north. This continues with suppression repair. And again, repair of dozer lines, erosion control measures are taking place, hazard trees, we're pulling back berms, we're opening areas up, we're accessing roads in the center of the fire so folks can get back into their residences and we can make it safe for them to be able to do so. And again, a lot of efforts continue all the way down to the heel of the fire. As you move around the heel, again, repair status all the way up into the Shaver Lake area. As you move past that, there is a lot of infrastructure work going on in here between the utility companies in close coordination with all the firefighting efforts. That continues all the way up to where we get back into some heat sources around the Vermilion area and all the way down to China Camp. Again, heat along the perimeter. Our crews are continued out there. They're diligent out there. We've got some weather phenomenon coming up with some high winds, and we're going to be monitoring any kind of open fire line all the way around the perimeter of the fire. Out here, again, some active fire growth, but we're using natural barriers to contain the spread of that, and we have firefighters on scene as we move around this. Out here, we're going to talk a little bit more about, it's been a highlight for people. We've had a lot of operational questions regarding the Mammoth Lakes area and the threat to Mammoth. Again, I said we use technology. When we get into our overall, when we describe our weather conditions, when we look at our fire behavior modeling that they'll talk about, our fire behavior analysts will talk about that. Our fire behavior modeling does not have the fire moving up into the Mammoth Lakes area. There are lots of natural barriers out here, and again, our fuel continuity changes heavily where we're not going to have the impacts that you saw in other parts of the fire. Again, we're monitoring it and we're using those natural barriers. We have crews that have been inserted into the Pond Lily area where you'll see some hand line taking place, some checking actions, and they are monitoring the fire spread in the event that we were to see something cross the creek. Once again, nothing has come up past the Fish Creek drainage. There's some old fire scars that are in here. There's granite rock, and again, very, very sparse fuels, especially as you move out to the east through all this granite area here where our fuels really change. Again, we feel we have a good handle overall on the incident with those two objectives of not only fighting the fire on the north end and the east side, but the suppression repair that's going on. One of the questions we get is, what are we doing with aircraft? I will discuss aircraft just briefly for people because I know questions come in. Are you flying aircraft? Are you using them to suppress the fire? Aircraft is an interesting component to fire suppression. You have to have the right airspace to do it. You have to have the right visibility to do it. And it has to be safe for our pilots. When you start getting in mountainous terrain at high elevation, several factors come into play for using aircraft, and we do not have good visibility up there for us to fly aircraft missions. When we do have good air, we take full advantage of that good air, and we fly aircraft and we do what we can with it. We have aircraft stationed in the Mammoth Lakes area at the airport out of 395. We have aircraft strategically placed on the east side of the incident and also down towards the southwest side of the incident. So there is aircraft available for us to use. As far as fixed wing aircraft and tanker support, once again, with the smoke conditions and flying in different types of environments, we have to have good entrance and exit for fixed wing aircraft, and we have not had that due to the inversion and the smoke sitting in, especially in this valley up here. We've talked specifically with people about what happens every day. We get kind of an up canyon push where the air pushes up and the smoke sits up against this mountain range daily. And then at night, it pushes it all back down into the lower portions, and it is a cycle that happens every single day. We're hoping with the winds that's coming up, hopefully it'll clear our air up a little bit, and we'll have some opportunities to work aircraft at the higher elevations. I hope that answered some of your questions tonight about what's taking place overall operationally on the fire, and I look forward to any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Chad. Our next speaker will be John Pendergrass, our incident meteorologist.
Good evening, everyone. John Pendergrass, meteorologist. Fire weather meteorologists, or incident meteorologists, as we're now called, have been coming to wildfires for nearly 100 years. We have a rich history of assisting on all incidents for mainly safety purposes, as well as planning for the safety of the firefighters and how they're going to tackle this fire. So it's appropriate now that I'm here to help the fire team with the weather forecast that I just gave them a couple hours ago for an event that we're going to have moving through after a pretty nice weekend ahead, where we're going to still have some mild autumn temperatures and some nice weather. We're going to actually have a very strong front moving through the region late Sunday night. That's going to bring much colder weather to the entire region. The front is going to be pushing through, accompanied by wind, into the overnight hours Sunday night, and producing some very cold temperatures in the 30s at the elevation where the fire crews are stationed, as well as the elevations above 5,000 feet on the fire. So the wind surge is going to persist into Monday, and we're going to see gusts of 30 to 40 miles an hour at the higher ridges in the area, as well as very low humidity. So we're making preparation for that at the fire with both the crews and the management objectives of the fire. Now those winds are going to persist into Tuesday, but they're going to be coming down in intensity and speed during the course of the day. Still somewhat breezy of a day, and getting gradually warmer as we go into the middle of next week. And then the outlook for next week is going to be that high pressure is going to reestablish itself, it looks like, over the region, bringing us back to a milder and some warming trend as we go through the remainder of the week. Now, many of you are probably wondering if we're going to get any precipitation with this front as it moves through. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have anything measurable with this event. So it's just a cold and dry event, relatively brief in duration, just a couple of days, and then we're going to get back to more seasonal conditions by the middle of next week. And I'll take any specific questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Our next speaker is going to be fire behavior, and we have Patrick Doyle and Patty Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Patty Johnson. I'm working as a long-term analyst with the team right now. Basically, as a long-term analyst, I'm looking at where the fire is potentially going in the next 3 to 5 days, week, maybe 1 week, and sometimes even up to 2 weeks if possible. A lot of those projections are always based on weather models. So the longer we try to do projections, the harder it is. And I'm going to show you a map right now of the progression and kind of go over what type of fire activity has been happening out there and where. So on the north side of the fire, as the operations section chief mentioned, just backing up into that rock area, kind of creeping around. Occasionally, it'll find a tree to torch, and then it spots to the next little piece of vegetation that it can find. But not really progressing very much up there, just creeping around. Moving around to the west and south sides of the fire out there, no particular activity near the lines of concern. Pretty much all that's happening is large diameter logs and stump holes are burning out in those areas. And then coming around to the northwest side of the fire where most of the activity is happening, if you find Florence Lake on your map, just north of there, has been some heat that we've been working on for a while. A lot of scattered fuels in between rock out there, not always easy to find all that heat. There is heat out there that's continuing to clean itself up. Most of that is well interior of the fire and does not pose a threat to the fire lines right now. I'm going up by Edison Lake, the next area of heat. West of there, there's quite a bit of heat in there, and south of Pincushion up in this area. So this is where we're seeing a lot of the smoke right now. We're seeing a lot of this coming together right now. It's not moving to the north at all. It's pretty much moving in to the south in this area up here. And then the next area that's of most concern, I think, to everybody is up in this Fish Creek Junction Bluffs area. And that area has had some active fire behavior, but once again, fairly slow progression on that area. It's backing down into the middle fork of the San Joaquin in there right now. Maybe, a quarter mile a day type of progression, occasionally a little bit more if it gets in the right kind of fuels. So with that, the next thing I do want to talk about is those longer term fire projections. So I'm going to show you a map of one of those projections. This map is a 5-day fire modeling run that will show where the fire is expected to go in the next 5 days. It's based on the fuels that are on the ground. That's all mapped and within the model. And then it's based on the weather forecast that is given to us. So if the weather forecast changes unexpectedly in 3 days and fire behavior changes and it moves differently, it's not that the model is wrong. It just means that the weather's changed and now it doesn't line up with the model. So what I'm seeing on that model is that it wants to continue to push down into this middle fork of the San Joaquin River in this area. Potentially get over the river, but we have a fire scar on the north side of the river up here that is pretty clean and probably going to hold fire, we're pretty confident of. It doesn't look like it really wants to push out across Fish Creek and up towards Mammoth at all. And the long-term models that I've been running, which is a probability model, also show the same thing. There's less than 0.1% probability that it'll even get up in the middle fork drainage a couple miles. So it would still be within 4 or 5 miles of that Mammoth Lake area in terms of probabilities of it reaching out there. And that's all I have for you tonight. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box if you want.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is going to be our Air Resource Advisor, Amber Ortega.
Hi everybody, I'm Amber Ortega. I'm an Air Resource Advisor and I'm here in the Creek Fire. An Air Resource Advisor is essentially a smoke specialist. We put out smoke monitors across the populated areas around the fire that looks at mass concentrations of PM 2.5. You don't need to worry about what that means right now. It just means smoke. We look at how smoke and weather interact. We look at how smoke and fire behavior interact. As Chad mentioned, we have a diurnal wind pattern every day. So in this topography, we have the Central Valley down here. We have the Sierra Crest, and then we have Mammoth, Bishop, Lee Vining on that side. And every day, the low-lying valley down there heats up, and air moves up the terrain. And at night, it moves back down the terrain. So this is kind of a sloshing mechanism. I think of it like bathtub water. If you slosh it back and forth, that's pretty much what the smoke is doing along this terrain. And so as smoke is produced, it's warm, it's hot, it's coming out of the fire, it rises up, it's buoyant. And at night, when the air and the land cool down, the smoke cools down as well, and it becomes denser than the air. So then it flows down the valleys just like water. So within the fire itself, or within the burn perimeter, we're seeing smoke really socked into those low-lying areas. Along the San Joaquin River drainage, along these different middle fork, south fork drainages. And you're asking then, if it's laying in these valleys, how's it getting over to Mammoth? Why is it getting over to Mammoth? First of all, it's not that far from Mammoth. When I say not that far, I mean like 8 miles from Mammoth. And the smoke can rise as high as the mixing layer. The mixing layer is a point in the atmosphere in which the smoke can rise to. After that, it's sort of stuck. And that mixing layer, when we say an inversion, that mixing layer can move up and down based on the larger weather conditions. At night, that mixed layer is very shallow, so smoke hangs in the valleys. During the day, with the heat of the day, that mixed layer builds, so the smoke can build over a bigger layer. That's often why it seems less smoky at sometimes the day during other times. It's both the winds moving up and down the valley, pushing the smoke around, and how deep that smoke can mix. Think of it like an aquarium full of water. If you put a lot of water into it, you have a deeper layer of water. If you drain that, it's a shallow layer. So if smoke's in a shallow layer, it's a lot thicker. It looks a lot thicker. That's why if you're in higher elevations and you look down, you can see a level of smoke. That's what we call an inversion, and smoke hangs down in that. So getting back to Mammoth, if we have enough smoke build up and the mixing layer is high enough, the smoke can spill over the Sierra Crest and get into Mammoth. Once it's in this valley up here that goes all the way down to Bishop, smoke can just flow almost like a river over the crest and then down into that valley. And we're seeing that happen right now. Mammoth has been high levels of smoke, unhealthy to very unhealthy to hazardous for the last couple days, and all the way down to Bishop. I expect this to continue until we get that weather system in. We'll see winds start picking up Sunday, and then late into Sunday into Monday. That should bring some much needed relief to that side of the crest. For tomorrow, we're actually going to see a little bit of relief here in the foothills locations, and we'll see the broader smoke plume again move off over the crest into Mammoth. I'm hoping the wind event in the next couple of days will actually bring much needed clearing to the whole area, including deep into the San Joaquin River drainage there. As our IMET mentioned, we're going to see another high pressure system building in similar weather conditions next week. So as far as smoke, by next week, we're really going to have to see what the fire does and what the weather does to be able to say anything about that. Again, my name is Amber Ortega. I put out a smoke forecast every day. You can find that on our Facebook page, and I'm happy to take any questions after this. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amber. Our next speaker is going to be the Madera County Sheriff's Corporal Chris Williams.
Good evening. I'm Corporal Chris Williams, liaison for the Madera County Sheriff's Department. I'm just going to talk about some of our reentry repopulations we've been doing the last few weeks up in the northern areas of Madera County. Past few weeks we've had residents and inholders that have properties that are landlocked within the forest, asking to get back into their residence and check out their properties and start evaluating for any repairs and issues they may have with the fire. 2 weeks ago, we started doing escorted reentries into the areas of Arnold Meadows and Bayshore Meadows. Both the initial entries were pretty successful. It was short notice, but we did allow them ample time to at least get a good evaluation that they could for the time being. Because of short notice, we did start up a second reentry that took place yesterday with Bayshore and Arnold Meadows, giving them another 4 days to get in and help winterize and finalize any preparations they need for their cabins and structures that will sit throughout the winter. This morning we allowed Central Camp residents back into their community. They were a little delayed just due to the intense amount of work that was being done by the fire departments and logging crews to get that area secured and safe for them. But they were allowed reentry into today. So we are working with the Forest Service, trying to get inholders and permanent residents that are within the forest back in to those areas on a continual basis with the use of the Forest Service 7700-48 permit, which will allow them to go back in and out on their own. We are still monitoring 2 hard closures, Bayshore Meadows correction, Bayshore Road off of Road 274 in Bass Lake, and then the 4S81 road out of North Fork. Those are hard closures due to the forest being closed. So we are asking that anybody that is not an inholder or property holder in the forest, please help us out by, staying out of the area until we can make sure it is safe for everybody to go back into, especially throughout this winter coming up. So I'll be available for any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to have Brian Thurborn from Southern California Edison. If you could just stand by, Brian, before you start, I'll let you know 1 second here. All right, you could go ahead and get started.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Brian Thoburn with Southern California Edison, and just briefly an update. We have 133 customers that remain without power in fire-impacted areas. Poor air quality continues to pose the major challenge for Southern California Edison restoration efforts. This week, we were able to restore power to the China Peak area through the use of generators. So at this time, all areas that can be safely served by generators have had power restored, and our crews continue to identify areas where we can expand that service. For those that have had questions about boat removal on Huntington Lake, just want to clarify for everyone, the Forest Service operates Huntington Lake, not Southern California Edison. So if there are folks that still have questions or have boats on the lake there that need removed, we suggest working with the Forest Service on that. We do advise, though, removing boats as soon as possible as we are entering that time of year where the lake levels will be lowering due to water movement. So wanted to remind everybody of that. Lastly, just a reminder about Southern California Edison's toll-free number for assistance to customers impacted by the fire. That number is 1-800-250-7339, 1-800-250-7339. And then you can also visit Southern California Edison's website, sce.com, for online wildfire disaster assistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Brian. I have some information from Fresno County. Residents needing more information on cleanup and debris removal should go to, we're going to post this in the chat function. This will also be available on both the YouTube channel as well as the Facebook, the Sierra National Forest Facebook page. It's going to be www.co.fresno.ca.us/recovery. Residents needing FEMA assistance should register as soon as possible. There are time limits to the registration, so it's really important that you get those in very quickly. You're going to find that off the Fresno County Resources, Fresno County Recovers debris removal page. Again, we will post that in the chat for you. Central Sierra Resiliency Fund workshops are ongoing. There's 2 workshops tomorrow. One of them, workshop 1, is FEMA and Recovery Efforts Clinic at 11 o'clock. It's at Central Sierra Historical Society Museum in Shaver Lake. And the second workshop is Community Soil Stabilization Demonstration and Training at 1:30. Again, we'll be closing comments from our Forest Supervisor, Dean Gould.
Well, good evening, and thank you again for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate you setting the time aside for this. Just have a few things I'd like to share with you from a few different areas that I think might be of note to you. First, as far as the fire activity, as was pointed out, there's very thorough operational briefing. Where the fire is still growing a bit is right in this general area. And so you may be noting in the news, or as you're following the progress of the fire, that you may see, wow, it's kind of staying at 61% containment for some time. Well, just be aware that they are adding containment, but at the same time, some additional perimeter is being created here as well. So it's one is kind of keeping up with the other. So it's not as though progress is not being made. It's just that as they're adding containment, there's some additional acreage being added, although the rate of growth is slowed down dramatically from earlier days of the incident. We are now at day 50 of this incident. Certainly a pretty significant milestone. I just want to give a little bit of order of magnitude perspective as far as how many folks have been out here on all of our behalf responding to this incident. There's been 6 incident management teams assigned to this incident so far. 4 type 1 teams. Again, those are the highest qualified, highest certified teams available. 2 level 2 incident management teams, and we're going to be ordering our 7th one here in the next day or so to backfill behind team 1 that is with us here now. And so along with that, there's been well over 6,000 personnel assigned to this incident over the course of the duration. Keep in mind that many of those 6,000 have come back a second or even a third time for additional tours, just kind of being here for 2 weeks or more, taking a couple days off, and then coming right back into it. And they've come from over 30 different states across the country, all the way out to New York. And so the response effort here has really been phenomenal as far as the number of responders, where they've come from, and their commitment for your safety and the care of the land. So a lot to be proud of there. As far as moving forward, just a couple things to be aware of. There's 2 orders that you should keep in mind that are in place at this time. One is a regional fire restriction, and that applies to all the lands in Region 5, notably California. And so that certainly covers all of the Sierra National Forest, and that is for open flames anywhere on the forest. It does allow for propane, that type of device to be used should you be out in a portion of the forest that is open at this time. The second order to be aware of is the forest closure order. Again, that's been amended recently to open up the northwest portion of the forest. We continue to look on a daily basis as to additional opportunities to open up more of the forest. I think you heard from the operational brief and from the sheriff's office that there's still quite a bit of work to be done out here. And so as soon as we can possibly reduce the size of that closure footprint, I give you my promise that we will be doing that. That all has to do with the access that you need. And so while that closure order may still be in place, any access that folks may need, I do encourage you to reach out to the team, reach out through the forest, through our website, and we will do our very best to accommodate you and to get you the access that you need to address the concerns or interests or values that you have there that need to be taken care of. We understand, the time of year and the need to get in there and take care of things, whether it be winterizing or just to assess what damage may have taken place. As you're doing that, I do want to make a very strong request, and that is that you please do so, be very mindful of your surroundings. There's an awful lot of vehicles on our primary highways coming in and out of the forest, doing a lot of restoration work, and there could be an opportunity there where we have an incident. We've been very, very successful up to this point of really having a terrific safety record when it comes to the vehicles. So I Just ask folks to continue to please be mindful of that. And also, we, as was explained also in the operational briefing, we're doing some pretty dramatic efforts to go in and try and reduce those hazard trees that are along the roadsides, and making sure that before we allow the public back into any road, that the obvious hazards have been addressed. And so, but that being said, please be aware of your surroundings. There are still hazards out there. We are doing our very best to catch all of them prior to letting a road be opened back up. And then the last thing I just want to touch on the way forward, and that is there's again going to be several different layers of response. We have suppression repair, which was mentioned that the team is doing very actively right now, trying to restore the actions that were taken in order to fight this fire. Next is going to be burnt area emergency response, and its primary focus is soil stabilization to really reduce the amount of soil erosion that may take place should we have a pretty heavy winter. And then lastly, there's going to be the forest response, where we too are going to be doing some additional treatments both on the land and roadsides, with the primary focus being your safety. And then we will take it from there. But first things first, we're definitely centered around public safety in everything that we're doing out here. So with that, thank you again for joining us. Keep the questions coming in. We still have a little bit of time, and look forward to speaking to you next time.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move into the question portion. We have a couple questions on smoke. We're going to have Amber Ortega come up and respond to some of those questions. And if you have questions, now will be the time to use that chat function to go ahead and add those in.
Everybody, I'm back. I'm going to answer some questions that came through on the chat. One of the first questions we got is the average number for air quality in Oakhurst. What were the numbers on the worst days? We use something called the air quality index to look at smoke. That is an index that goes from 0 to 500. That takes all the mass concentrations and turns it into a scale that you can conceptualize based on colors. So green is a good day. That's actually from 0 to 12 micrograms per meter cubed. And as the colors get hotter and more intense, the levels of smoke or the air quality index get higher. And so in Oakhurst itself, we saw one solid week of hazardous air quality index conditions. That means the air quality index was above 300 on the air quality scale, and the smoke concentrations were above 250 micrograms per meter cubed. So there's the science on the numbers for air quality in Oakhurst specifically. During that week from September 10th to September 17th, we saw hazardous levels of air across the board from all areas surrounding the fire. Overall, air quality has improved from those numbers in the middle of September when the fire was really rocking and rolling. Right now, we have seen a couple days, like 2 days in a row, of hazardous in Mammoth. Right now, Mammoth is more like unhealthy to very unhealthy. If you want to know more about that, just Google air quality index, and it'll give you more information on that. Another question we had is, how much longer can we expect smoke? Again, with that frontal system coming through late Sunday into Monday, it's going to be a pretty breezy day across the board here, and you're going to see that clear out the smoke. That'll cause smoke dispersion. That'll bring in clear air. A lot of the wind is coming from the northeast. There's no fires up there right now, so it's going to bring in clean air. And then lastly, as far as health resources for short and long-term smoke exposure, right now, if you're in an area where you're having unhealthy, very unhealthy, hazardous levels are hazardous to everyone, regardless of your age or fitness level. Whereas unhealthy or unhealthy for sensitive groups levels, the orange and red, they're unhealthy for people with pre-existing conditions, elderly, children. What you can do is find yourself some cleaner air. We have some resources that we've posted, the Sierra National Forest has posted on their Facebook page on how to get some cleaner air. You want to stay indoors. You want to try to minimize doors open, windows open. You can always get in your car and put on the recirculation, of course, with your car parked outside. You can build yourself a box fan to clean the air. Use a HEPA filter and a box fan. We'll put those resources on our Facebook page. And I just want to remind you that you can get my air quality forecast for smoke in this region for the Creek Fire on our Facebook page. You can also Google California Smoke Blog, and that has the smoke forecast for this whole state of California.
Amber, we have one more question come in about
Sure.
what about PM 10 and 2.5?
So when I talk about smoke and I talk about smoke concentrations, I'm specifically talking about PM 2.5. The 2.5 number is the radius of a smoke particle. So PM 2.5 is any solid or liquid suspended in the air that is smaller than 2.5 microns in diameter. When you look at a human hair, which I have a lot of hair, my hair just came out of here, you could fit like hundreds across a strand of human hair. The 2.5 is so small that it can actually get into your lungs, can get into your bloodstream. And that's the one we care about the most for health impacts because your lungs can't filter that out. PM 10 is much coarser. That is like blowing dust in the air, ash particles in the air, and oftentimes your respiratory system will filter that out. You'll feel a scratchy throat. You'll feel, like a cough from PM 10, but it won't actually get into your bloodstream. We have a natural system to help filter that out. And with that, I'll get out of here. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amber. We're going to have 2 more questions. Our next question that we have is about tree planting, and we'll have our forest supervisor, Tingle.
All right. The question was, will there be tree planting? There certainly will be. Just in the sake of time, I was already getting the signal that I was running just a tad long this evening. But anyway, I mentioned we were going through several steps to address things. First, there's the emergent response, and then there's going to be the restoration piece of that, of which reforestation is certainly a key component. Just so you know, something I'm incredibly proud of, and for your information, the Sierra just this past spring planted over 300,000 seedlings in response to previous fires that we had on the forest. And just to be aware of the challenges involved with that, because that was really at the very earlier stages of the COVID response, and we were trying to develop mitigation measures while we were going out in the field doing those things. And the staff just was so passionate about getting those seedlings planted. They had been ordered, they were here, and then COVID came into play, and so we had to really work very hard to make sure we could get all those in place during a pretty narrow window, but they did. And they did it very well and professionally. And so we will be doing more of that. That is absolutely a key piece. And I just want to give one additional plug for the 2 meetings that were mentioned tomorrow. Those are so important. We've been getting a lot of phone calls here. All of us here have been getting them from different sources about those FEMA workshops, the one at Shaver Lake and the one also at Cressman's. Those are so important. And so if I could ask one favor of you, and that is, I know there's a certain number of folks on here tonight, but I also know that you know an awful lot of people. If you could please share that information with them. How I found out about that, those meetings tomorrow, I heard it on the radio this morning on the way in. I'm not sure how much that word has really gotten out to folks. So please, I know there's a lot of people very interested in that FEMA information, and those 2 workshops I think will do a great service in answering those questions. So please do spread the word on those. And again, that information will be posted in the chat, so you can just grab it right from there.
Thank you so much, Dean. We have a couple of comments from our instant commander, Fred Nadella.
Well, my name is Jerry McGowan. I'm the incident commander of the Creek Fire and the incident commander of the team leader of California Incident Management Team 1. I would just like to thank you for being on tonight and listening to the presentations that have occurred. And I hope that we've answered many of your questions. We're pretty lucky to have a smoke management person up here kind of running things, and then an LTAN too, a long-term analysis person to study this, and so that our operations folks can really do some strategic planning and tactical planning all the way around this fire. There's a lot of great work with about 800 people going on right now, all the way around this fire. CAL FIRE, in the cooperation with CAL FIRE, the sheriff's departments, both sheriff's department on both counties. A lot of people are doing a lot of good coordination within this fire, and I hope that we all appreciate that. With that, good night.
Thank you so much, Jerry. We'll let you, we will be recording this and it will be available on the YouTube channel as well as our Facebook Live. And with that, have a great evening and we'll talk to you again next week.
Audio is clear.